The crystalline spires of Valdroth Station pierced the void like frozen lightning, a monument to 100 alien civilizations working in uneasy harmony. In the lower districts, where the air recyclers wheezed and the gravity generators occasionally hiccuped, Ferret wiped grease from his hands and surveyed his latest salvage. The pipe organ dominated the cramped workshop like a sleeping giant. Brass pipes rose 3 stories high, their surfaces etched with symbols from a dead human colony. Ferret had found it drifting in the debris field near Sector 7, a relic from Earth's diaspora, abandoned when humanity still thought music mattered more than survival. "You actually brought that junk here?" Ferret didn't need to turn around to recognize Maya's voice. The Draconess ambassador had a way of making every word sound like both a challenge and an insult. Her scales caught the dim workshop lights, refracting them into rainbow patterns across the walls. "It's not junk," Farid said, running his hand along one of the pipes. "It's history." Maya laughed, a sound like grinding crystal. She was magnificent in the way that natural predators were magnificent. 7 feet of scaled muscle, wings folded against her back, eyes that burned with an intelligence older than most species in the station. The Draconess had ruled their corner of the galaxy for millennia before humans even discovered fire. History? She circled the organ, her tail swishing across the floor. Humans and their obsession with primitive sound-making devices. We Draconess mastered telepathic symphonies while your ancestors were still banging rocks together. And yet here you are, in my workshop, looking at my primitive sound-making device. Ferret allowed himself a small smile. Maya's nostrils flared. "I came to discuss the fusion regulator repairs. The council is waiting. The repairs are done. Early, as usual." Ferret gestured to a crate in the corner. "You can pick them up any time." This seemed to irritate her more than satisfy her. Maya prided herself on finding fault with human work. But Ferret's mechanical genius left her with few opportunities. She'd been searching for 3 months now, ever since he'd arrived at the station. "So you waste time on this instead of useful work." She tapped a claw against one of the larger pipes, producing a dull thunk. "Does it even function?" "It will." The vacuum seals were compromised, and half the keys need rebuilding. But the core mechanism is sound. And what will you do with it then? Play your primitive music for the amusement of other humans? Maya's smile was sharp. "Oh, wait. There are only 17 humans on this station. Not much of an audience." Ferret had heard variations of this before. Humanity was the newcomer, the upstart species that had clawed its way to the stars 2,000 years after most of the galaxy had already divided up the territory. Humans lived in the cracks, in the forgotten stations and marginal worlds, surviving on ingenuity and stubbornness. "Music isn't about audience size," Ferret said quietly. "Then what is it about?" Maya leaned against the organ, her posture deliberately casual. "Enlighten me, mechanic. What makes your banging and howling superior to Draconess' thought song?" Ferret looked at her. Really looked at her. Beneath the arrogance and the cutting words, he saw something else. Curiosity. Loneliness, perhaps. The Draconess ambassador to Valdroth Station, surrounded by aliens she considered inferior, light years from her home. "Tell you what," Ferret said. "Give me 3 days to finish the repairs. If I can get it working, I'll play something for you. Then, you can judge for yourself." Maya's eyes narrowed. "And why would I waste my time listening to human noise? Because you're curious. Because despite everything you say, you want to understand what makes us tick. What lets a species of hairless apes punch above their weight class in a galaxy full of telepaths and warriors and empires that were ancient when Earth was young?" For a long moment, Maya was silent. Then she laughed again, but this time there was something different in it. "Fine. 3 days. But I promise you, mechanic, it will be a disappointment. And when it is," she paused dramatically, her tail coiling around one of the organ's support struts, "if you can actually make that monstrosity produce something worth hearing, something that moves even my ancient Draconess heart, I'll marry you." It was clearly a joke, a mockery. The idea was absurd. Draconess didn't marry outside their species. It was forbidden by custom and law, and besides, what dragon would ever lower herself to bond with a human? Ferret just smiled. I'll see you in 3 days, Ambassador. Maya left in a swirl of scales and barely suppressed laughter. For 3 days, Ferret didn't sleep. He rebuilt every key, every valve, every seal. He calibrated the air pressure systems and rewired the electrical components that had been retrofitted centuries ago. He tested each pipe individually, tuning them by ear against reference tones from the station's database. On the 3rd day, Maya returned, along with half the station. Word had spread about the bet, the arrogant Dragoness, and the human mechanic. A challenge that seemed designed for human humiliation. Ferret sat at the organ's console, his hands hovering over the keys. The workshop had been cleared, the organ standing free in the center of the space. Maya stood in the front, arms crossed, that familiar smirk on her face. "Well?" she said. Ferret placed his hands on the keys and began to play. The first notes rolled out like thunder, deep and resonant, vibrating through the deck plates and into the bones of everyone present. Then came the melody, rising and falling, a piece from old Earth that spoke of cathedrals and starlight, of humanity's long climb from caves to cosmos. But Ferret didn't just play the notes. He played with them, improvising, weaving in harmonics and counter-melodies that the original composer never imagined. His hands moved like living things across the keyboard, pulling sounds from the organ that seemed impossible whispers and roars, the cry of a newborn and the silence of deep space. He played humanity's story. The struggle, the loss, the stubborn refusal to yield. He played the loneliness of being the youngest species in an ancient galaxy. He played hope. When the final note faded, the silence was absolute. Maya stood frozen, her scales rippling with colors Ferret had never seen before. Her eyes were wide, and if he didn't know better, he'd swear there were tears gathering in their corners. That, she whispered, was impossible. That was... I felt it. In my mind. In my bones. How did you... Ferret stood slowly. That's what makes us human, Ambassador. We take the broken things, the forgotten things, and we make them sing. Maya looked at him, looked at the organ, looked back at him. Around them, the crowd was silent, even the Draconess observers, stunned into quietness. "Well," Maya said finally, her voice oddly unsteady, "it seems I made a promise, mechanic. You were joking. Draconess do not joke about marriage vows." She stepped forward, and for the first time since he'd met her, she seemed uncertain, even made in jest. "Words have power, and you, Ferret of Earth, have proven that your species has something we Draconess have forgotten in our millennia of assumed superiority." "What's that?" "The ability to touch the soul with your hands." She extended one clawed hand toward him. "So, yes, human. If you'll have a proud, stubborn Dragoness who has just learned humility, I will keep my word." Ferret took her hand, his small human fingers engulfed by her scaled palm. In the workshops of Valdroth Station, between the stars and the void, the youngest species in the galaxy had just taught the oldest a lesson about the power of human passion. And somewhere in the cosmos, the universe smiled. The end.